Welcome to the Intentional Guy Podcast, where we are driven to help men become more intentional and purposeful in their daily lives. Your host, Michael Chestnut, will interview amazing guests to get insight and glean wisdom from, so we can integrate intentional living and lead happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. All right, let's get started with the show.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. It's so great to have you with us today. You know, I'm excited about today's show because one of the big things that we talk about a lot is being intentional in our walk and to become the man that we want to be. And it is actually, you know, we have to have strategic things in our life. We have to have goals. We have to have purpose. And I'm amazed a lot of times how many of us don't have that in our lives. Today, I brought on the show a guest with us named Mark Jordan. Mark is the founder of Unravel Groups. And Mark, thank you so much for being with us today on here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me, Michael. Yeah, I'm looking forward to spending some time with you, man. Thank you.
I'm excited to talk to you because I looked over your website, looked over everything, you know, and just think this matches really well with us. And I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I would love for you to tell my listeners about your organization, about Unravel Groups and what that actually is, and you know, maybe what led you to this.
Yeah, and let me just say first, I love the name of your podcast, intentional. I mean, that's a word that we spend a lot of time on in Unravel Groups, and probably helpful first, Michael, just to give you just an understanding of our mission statement to create context. Our mission statement is to lead men into a growing relationship with Christ by equipping them for the pursuit of leadership and excellence. So awesome. Equipping them for leadership and the pursuit of excellence within the context of a growing relationship with Christ. So that's our mission statement. That governs everything that we do. Everything flows from that, and we put everything through that grid. And you know, the way we like to describe it is Unravel, it first is for all men. It's especially important or especially applicable for men who take their future seriously and want to make huge strides spiritually, relationally, professionally, really in all aspects of their lives. And the goal is really to see men explore significant growth in their life. And we do that within this context of preparation and participation. We have a curriculum, if you will, or let's call it a process that flows from the Bible. It draws from a number of teachers, pastors, scholars, and leaders, some secular, some faith-based, and just a wide range of body of knowledge that we draw from. And it's really built around this idea that men have they have scalable, sustainable growth when they do it in a community group, a small group. It's very hard to do it by ourselves. I mean, I'm sure you're like me. You know, you try to make a change in your life, and when you're doing it by yourself, it's just hard. And so we've created an environment so that men can experience that. And then the last comment I'll make to create context is we believe that there's a large percentage of men that just aren't pursuing excellence in their lives. They're living this life of mediocrity. And a lot of it's because no one, Michael, has ever taught them how. They've never exposed them to something bigger. And so that's really what we're trying to do, is to be, hey, you want to be a light in the world. And a lot of that is about pursuing excellence and reflecting that light in an excellent way.
Wow, I love that, because you're dead on. And I mean, I was one of those guys. I was just floundering, you know, without purpose and everything else. And then what happened is life took over. You're going to end up somewhere, right? Yeah. You're going to end up somewhere. Yeah. And I'd rather be purposeful in where I'm headed so that I can end up in a great place rather than divorced and ruined and everything else. And I love the fact that you said there's a process, you know. I think that's what a lot of men, you hit it on the head. I think a lot of men are lacking guidance. Something that's proven, a process that works. And, you know, some men have been blessed with great fathers who help give that process, but some were not. And I'm involved in a group that meets every morning by Zoom, you know, and just started that recently, and it has enhanced my life tremendously. In fact, I had coffee with them today, and that doing that life together with people is just so crucial to doing that. So tell us a little bit more on the context of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you talk about groups, so part of what led us to create Unravel is that a lot of it's just my life experience in groups. So I've experienced over the years, there tends to be two ends of the spectrum in groups. There tends to be one group that's very intellectual based, and I've been in some of those and grew tremendously from them. Then there's other groups that tend to be more social or shared interest based. And they tend to get together. Hey, we're going to be accountability partners. We're going to ask each other tough questions, but they generally devolve more into a hangout time, a time that without structure, without purpose. So Unravel is really meant to create a space of an intersection of those two things, so that it's got enough a purpose and substance to it, so that men are making progress. They feel like they're accomplishing something. At the same time, it's not overwhelming, so so they feel like it's too big. So it's different in respect to the vast majority of groups that men are in. And we find, and I know I found for myself, in years of being in groups, of which many were fantastic, and I grew in many different ways, I found myself oftentimes wanting more and longing for progress. So in fact, one of our themes in Unravel is progress, not perfection. And we're really about trying to make progress, move the ball down the field, because, Michael, we feel like every man feels stuck in some area of his life. None of us are perfect, obviously. So we're all in various seasons, ebbing and flowing in these various areas of feeling stuck. And that's what we're about, is becoming unstuck, making a step forward, and making some progress.
Okay. And you said this was for every man. And is it for a certain geological location that you guys do this? Are you, how broad is this?
We spent the first, I've lost track of time now, probably 4 or 5 years of Unravel, working out the various systems and tweaking it and refining it in ways that it could be scalable. So early on, it was all face-to-face in a couple of different geographical locations. And then a year ago, we formed a 501c and decided that we wanted to really scale and develop Unravel on a worldwide scale. I mean, our goal is to reach 1 million men in 10 years. And when I say that, sometimes it's, wow, that's massive. It almost feels uncomfortable to even say it, but that's our goal. And so to do that, we have to scale geographically. So that's where we're at right now, is embarking on that. And so we now are at a spot where we have all of our groups are either face-to-face or virtual. The vast majority of the groups right now are virtual, because we'll have a man from Florida, from New York. We have some out of the country. We have some from Africa right now. They're in groups. And so all over the world, we want to have men to have the space to participate in a group. But practically speaking right now, many of them are virtual, unless a man raises their hand and says, hey, I want to be a leader, in which case we just launched a online training system to get men trained to lead an Unravel group. So a man anywhere in the world could lead a group face-to-face by going through our training program. So there's no geographic limitations. It's available to every man, regardless of where he's at.
I love I like a couple of things that you said. One thing that I like that you're, since COVID, we've learned that we can do things virtually, right? But I also like there's nothing that compares to face too, right? Yeah. And so I'm often, a lot of men, a lot of people, we're looking for everybody else to do something. And I always say, create opportunity where there's not opportunity. So if you're in an area where it doesn't have a face-to-face, you get involved in the virtual. I love the fact that someone can develop into a leader and maybe start that in their community, within their church, or what have you, so that you can, not only are you growing, but then you're helping others to grow through the experience that you're having as well.
Yeah, and from your podcast, you're serving people through this podcast and you are growing from it yourself. And it's the same way with
Right.
Unravel. A man that leads Unravel, obviously he's serving other men, but he's going to grow immensely himself. And we are really committed to making sure every man has a space to participate in Unravel, regardless of whether it's virtually or face to face. And COVID, frankly, was a blessing for us. You know, we were a bit myopic early on in the sense that we felt like, oh, it all had to be face to face because that's the best way to establish connection. And certainly it still is, the preferred way. And we're grateful that now there's a much more openness and acceptance of the virtual environment. So and look, Michael, we're looking forward to the virtual reality world becoming, more refined and available for us to do groups through that as well. So we just did some testing recently in that for a few weeks. The technology isn't quite there yet, but we're excited about even VR headsets becoming an avenue in the future for men that want that.
Awesome. So let me ask you this question and get an answer from you. So I've got a listener that's listening to us today. Okay. And let's kind of narrow this down, the process to get involved into this and why you would need to get involved in this. Because I know there's a lot, I have talked to men I've got a really good friend that's been married for a long time, close to divorce, but has no relationships outside of that. And what has happened is what we've been talking about, just life can take you over and the direction's gone, things like that. Who is this for? Which is, we've always established it's for everyone, but how would it help the regular guy that's sitting here? And then what is the process for this guy to say, hey, how do I look into this? How do I start? How do I become a part of this? And then what am I going to get out of it? What can I expect going to be involved in one of these groups?
Yeah, I love the way you
laid a lot out there, didn't I?
No, I love the way you framed it, because I'm thinking about all these different things that we can kind of bring to this large picture to help a man understand why they should be involved in it, what they can expect to give from it. Let's start with what the outcomes that we desire for a man who goes through Unravel, and then we'll kind of use that to back into some of the other components of this. First, they can expect a God-given vision. As an outcome, they can expect a practical framework for moving that vision forward. Michael, you know as well as I do, we all struggle with maintaining focus on a vision, if we even have one, a real vision,
right.
A real vision in all aspects of our lives. We like to think about faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances, kind of these 5 areas that encompass all aspects of our life, with faith obviously being the element that wraps around all of that, and everything else resides within that. And so we want to give men a framework for moving that vision forward. We know another outcome is going to be a consuming passion for the Great Commission, or I should say a desired outcome, a mission statement, and lastly, a personal testimony. Those are the outcomes in Unravel 1. I want to talk about Unravel 2 and 3 in a minute, but Unravel 1, that's the outcomes for Unravel 1. So men will leave that, they'll get to the end of that, and they'll leave with all those things. And the thing that's going to be sustaining for them is a practical framework for moving that forward, right? So we feel like men need to go through this process of, in fact, Isaiah 6 and 1 through 8 talks about this process that Isaiah is going through of disintegration and then reintegration. And that's what we feel like we're going through in this process. There's areas of our life that we need to get unstuck, or we need to disintegrate a little bit, kind of unwind that or unravel that, which is the name Unravel, and then go through a reintegration process or developing a framework process. And that's what Unravel does. So as far as like what men is it for, it really for every man. And I'd love to point people to our website, unravelgroups.com. We have many testimonials on there. And you can imagine your listeners today, all of them have a story. They all have an area that they're struggling in, because we all do. And you'll see testimonials on that site that speak to those. So every man that has an
I
area.
love the testimonials on there. I'd really recommend guys doing that, because I think they'll find their stories connect more than they think they do.
Well said. I mean, that's exactly right. And you actually said better than the way I was going to say the next comment, which is men feel a connection, because when they're by themselves, oh, no one else is struggling with this except for me. When they get in a group with men who are transparent, and we give them skills to have crucial conversations, to develop intimacy better, for conflict resolution, communication, discipline, all these things, we give them practical skills for doing that. And they do it in the context of men who are struggling just like they and we are. So every man, whatever area they feel stuck in, or feel less than in, or feel like they want to make progress in, we're going to give them a framework to move the ball down the field in that.
Yeah, that's neat. I wonder how you overcome. Let's be honest. A lot of men, we don't want to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Because we're afraid. One, let's just be honest. We don't like being vulnerable. And then
Right.
and then their head, they're thinking, oh, this is about how do you feel, feelings and things like that. And it's this, or I don't know if they feel threatened or what, but the payoff is what you should motivate you to becoming a better person than who you are. And how it will, when we are intentional in directing our lives. I did not realize how much the enemy always likes to talk in my ear and tell me that I couldn't be the spiritual leader of my family. I was not equipped. I was not qualified, and the neat thing is, once I started my journey and changing what I could change, which was me, how it affected my family. And it's been amazing to watch the growth in my wife and my kids and things, how just by me doing the right thing, just by me becoming a better man, changed my family. And the joy I have from that. And so as guys are listening to this, I know there's these things that keep men from wanting to try new things. But I also know there's a lot of men out there looking, and sometimes we have to look outside of, we have to admit what we're doing is not working. Let's be open to something that is working. Go look at the testimonials, go to something that is working, that has a process. What do you got to lose?
Yeah. And, like me, and your listeners know, that the vast majority of really fulfilling, gratifying, progress-making decisions they've made in their life are hard. They're uncomfortable. They don't come from the easy things like, oh, let me hang out with my friend, once a week and then kid myself into thinking that I'm doing something significant in my life. I love Henry Cloud's definition of integrity, the courage to meet the demands of reality. So we're trying to give men, we're trying to open up men to their eyes to see their reality, and then give them space to exert the courage that they have to meet that, and then make progress in moving the ball down the field, in encountering reality and making progress in the areas that they need to. And so you're right. It's hard because, in fact, the vast majority of men that initially encounter Unravel, they feel significantly stuck in an area. We wish we could attract more men who feel kind of partially stuck before they get to, I'm really, really stuck. Right. And we'll continue hopefully to refine our messaging and be able to attract more men in that regard. But oftentimes it takes us getting to a spot where we just feel like we don't have a lot of other, options to choose. Everything else we've tried is working. Here's something new to get us to take that step forward. It's hard though. It's hard. And It's a space that does create uncomfort. It's challenging, for men. And we think when we think men want to rise to the challenge, we want to give them the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. So let me ask you, let's take, I'm trying to think of some questions that men would have. And one of it would be, how often does a group meet, and what's the time frame that they meet for? How long are you in a group meeting? So
yeah, this would be a good time to kind of talk about the different levels of Unravel, or the different steps in the journey. So Unravel 1, which is the first part of Unravel, is a monthly commitment. It's all a monthly meeting. It's 3 hours per month, which sounds like, oh, that's not a big commitment. And Michael, the big work occurs outside of that. So every week there's work to be done, from books to read, in preparation, so that when men show up to that environment, they're showing up in a way they're likely not showing up in any other venue that they're operating in, or that they're active in. It requires a lot of preparation, and we develop these skills so that men learn to show up prepared in ways they've never thought about before. So there's preparation time over the month, which includes reading a book in most months,
right.
And then the meeting itself is 3 hours. That's Unravel 1, and that's a year commitment. We do a retreat within that year as well, which is virtual or face-to-face, depending on where the groups are meeting. Particular groups that will be participating in the retreat, but mainly it's a year, once a month, 3 hours, with several hours a week of preparation time leading up to that monthly meeting. Then when Unravel 1 is finished, no obligation, but our desire is for men to go to Unravel 2, which is a 6-month commitment. Same thing, once a month for 3 hours, and same preparation time. It's focused primarily on leadership, the Unravel 2 environment. After Unravel 2, our desire, and this is our hope for all men, that they would get in Unravel 3. Unravel 3, Michael, is a long-term group for men to land in, to continue to move that framework they've developed forward, and have a healthy place to discuss the challenges of life, and a healthy way to do that with the skills they learn in Unravel. Just to give you an example, C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien, a lot of authors that were colleagues at Oxford met regularly in a group they called the Inklings. And they would get together and they would offer feedback on the writing of the other people in the group. And of course, these are great thinkers, and they respected each other's advice. And I was always struck by that, to hear these incredibly accomplished men are, and they're meeting with other men to give them constructive feedback on how they can become better in their craft. And of course, they talked about many other things beyond just their craft. So Unravel 3 was modeled after that. It's where men show up, and particularly in today's world, Michael, it's hard to have a space to talk about things that are controversial, that are challenging, and know that can be a place to actually speak first and then edit later, so that you can grapple with the big thoughts that you have about life, and have men in the group who can challenge those, support those, encourage those. So it's meant to be a long-term home. Unravel 3, none of that's obligatory, of course, but that's our desire, for men to go on that journey so they have a long-term landing place.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, is there a cost to this?
No, it's free. We do not charge. We're a 501c3. We rely on donations for people to, of course, men that go through it. Our hope, of course, is that they would be excited about it and want other men to be able to participate, and they would make donations, but there's no obligation, for that to occur. We go ahead. Yeah.
I imagine they need to buy a book or whatever some of that to go through.
Yeah, thank you. That is the cost. Is there are some books. Depending, when they would join the group. Right now, there's 10 books for them to buy over the 12-month period of time.
Right.
That could change at some point in time.
Which is
Right,
great.
there's 10 books that they would have to buy. Yeah, so that's the only cost. There's no charge for it for them to participate in it.
Well, wow, you're taking away a lot of excuses to not do it.
Yeah.
I found that a lot of men we don't like to read, and that's one of the things I've been on a mission because I hadn't read. I was not a reader. I had thought I was. I went with this lie that I was stupid for so long, and from my past. But I started reading in the last 5 years, and it has changed. It has changed my life. It really has, to be able to read, but then to discuss this stuff. And so I know some guys, as you're listening to this, I know there's a lot of men I've discovered that don't read, and so I really want to encourage the listeners to don't let that make you nervous in the process. But it was a great challenge for me. And what happened was now I can't read enough, and getting the right stuff in front of me to read. And so that's the safety of this too, is you've got a process that works. You've got books that are proven, and you've got steps that you can take. And it's not that it's at your pace. It's not once per month for 3 hours is not, so that's not a threatening thing to be with some men and just to go through this stuff. And so a lot of this is stuff that you would do on your own. And I would encourage guys, like, find another man in your church or something, say, hey, you want to do this with me?
Oh, wow, that's a great idea.
And do it together. Because I know I always need accountability. I like having a partner in crime. Hey, would you like to do this with me? Mm-hmm. Because if I'm going to do, I want to be committed to it, and
yeah, you're right about that, Michael. And that's the power of the group, is men don't want to show up unprepared for the group once they understand clearly that that the group values that. So we try to model all of these things. If a guy shows up unprepared the first time because he's accustomed to showing up unprepared, we have a conversation. It's a healthy conversation that's, hey,
right,
this group is different. This is for you to show up prepared. And that's why the vast majority of people, and men included, don't read. It's because when you're by yourself, let's see, I have a choice. I can read a book, or I can watch something on TV, or I can go do something else. It's hard to have the discipline. Well, Unravel creates that built-in structure for that, because you have a deadline, and it's only one book per month, which sounds like a lot when you only read one book a year. But over a month period of time, the guys see, hey, I can do this. And they get to the end, they've read 10 books in a year, and they're going,
amazing.
Wow, I never thought I could do that. And now they're not going to keep up that same pace probably, but they're going to have a built-in now framework for growing within the context of reading over the long term.
And right there's a major sense of accomplishment that goes with doing that.
Yeah. It's kind of like running a marathon together. When you get to the end of that, or any kind of strenuous event, you're high-fiving each other and you go, man, that was incredible. And that's how men feel when they get to the end of Unravel.
Let me ask you, is there an age limit to this?
There's not. We have, it's not so much a minimum age as much as it is someone needs to at least be someone who's, past college age to be in the group, because there's the life experiences, the topics we talk about. It's very hard for someone younger, and it's not designed for someone to be relatable at that age. But there's no top end age for it. And we've created, to your point about it's hard for men to take that step forward, we created last year a 6-week unwrap called Unravel Go. That's totally self-paced. It's sort of a 6-session, if you will, environment, or six pieces to it. That's all self-paced. It's not a group environment, so that men who go, that's a big commitment for a year. They can sign up, do Unravel Go at their own pace, and get like a small little experience of what it means to make a little bit of progress. And then hopefully that's the on-ramp for them to then sign up for Unravel 1.
That sounds perfect. Okay, I got 2 questions for you then. So let's go with the first question. Would be, they would, so for someone that says, okay, I want to give this a try.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the website and what's the process to sign up for this? And is there a point of contact or something that's made to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, we've tried to make it as frictionless as possible. They go to the website. There's a link right on the page. It says start your journey. You click join a group. It's a very simple few questions that you complete. Those questions then get sent to our team. Then subsequent to that, they're sent an email with a second set of questions that help them to be able to articulate where they are in their life. And once they complete those second set of questions, that's it. As soon as the next group is starting, they get an email saying, hey, the group's getting ready to kick off and your leader will be in touch with you. And the Unravel leader for that group connects with them to schedule a time. So it's real simple. Go to the website, click start your journey, click join a group, and that's it.
Wow, sounds great. All right, so my next question for you. As the founder of Unravel, I want to ask you personally, what have you gained since you've started this? What have you gained from this? And how has it been life-changing just in your life?
Yeah, great question, man. I'm glad you asked that because we love talking about it, Unravel, how our lives have been impacted, how our lives have changed. The first thing I want to say at a very high level, and I alluded to this earlier, touched on it earlier, is when you get involved in serving, helping, whatever term you want to use, other people, your first reaction to that usually is something you're doing that's helpful to other people, and it's true. But the way you're growing out of that is so much bigger. So the first thing I would say at a high level, Michael, is I couldn't even anticipate, like early on, or couldn't even articulate the areas that this has impacted, that being involved in Unravel has impacted me and our team. We have a national leadership team of 3 other guys that are committed and focused on developing Unravel. They all have the same stories, all the way down to the leaders, to the people that are in Unravel. So I think probably the first thing that I've really grown a lot in is humility. I think earlier in my life and probably even through the middle part of my life, that was probably not a value that I understood in the way that I needed to. And being in Unravel and seeing the life change and seeing the experience has humbled me as I realize, wow, I mean, look at the work that God is doing. It's very humbling. And then, of course, intersect that with, I've had 3 back surgeries now in my life. I have pain that lasts 24/7. It hasn't stopped now for over 10 years. Never stops. And so being in Unravel, participating in Unravel, being a leader in Unravel, and then having life challenges, that's just one example in my life that intersect with that, have given me new understandings of things like humility. Another big area of growth in me that, Michael, I'll be, my last breath and I'll still need to grow in this, but it's patience. That's something that's really, that I continue need and I will always need to work on. I'm not the most patient person in the world, but being Unravel has really developed, and refined that area of my life, much more. Grace is another part. It's easy to look at the parts of your life that you're doing well in, and then to expand those too much, or think too highly of yourself than you should, and look at other people and go, can't understand why they can't do that, or they can't make progress in that area. And being immersed in Unravel and being around all these different men who all have different challenges, yet we all have one thing in common, that is we have challenges. They may be different. It's given me a lot of grace for myself, which is something I need to continue to work on. It's giving myself grace. I don't do enough of that, but giving others grace as well. Unravel has been a big part of that. The other thing is, and I could talk forever, I'll just make this the last comment on that, is it's created the very framework we created is created my framework for continuing to want to grow and make progress and be someone who never wants to be happy with status quo, never want to live in mediocrity, but to continue to want to move forward, because I'm surrounded by all these men that are doing all this incredible hard work and devoted to making a difference. And how can I not want to be more?
Right. Right. Well, I tell you, this just goes so well with what intentional guy is. You know, we're striving to be better. Iron sharpens iron,
Mm-hmm.
and any opportunity where we can have a way to improve myself needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked at. And if there is something, so I want to encourage my guys, I'm going to be checking this out. I want you to check it out. I encourage you, like I said earlier, I know some people are in remote places, other things like that. Find a friend to go through this with. Do this journey together with someone else that you can walk through. You got a best friend, you got a buddy, maybe you guys are all a part of a small group. I know I'm in a small group, couples small group, and we're looking for things. This might be a thing for us men in the small group to do together, to journey through together, because it would not interfere with that group, but it would also enhance us more as men and husbands. And just the fact that it gives you some structure that is proven to do it. I want to encourage you, go check out the I just lost my train of thought. The website where the testimonials are, because wow, they're good, and the pay. I'm all about the payoff. If there's something that can make me better for my family, especially, one of the things that I'm addicted to now, Mark, is the way my wife looks at me since I started being intentional in my journey.
Wow.
Because she doesn't want another child to take care of her. She wants a man. She wants a husband, right? Yeah. And a lot of times the wife is the one leading the family, because we're something at work and we got focus, but then in our own life, we're lacking that focus. And I'm way more than the sum of the job that I have. My role as a father and a husband is so much greater than any other role I have, and should be taken with respect. And that's one of the things that I see with this, that if it can help me in that makes it valuable. That makes it valuable.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yeah, you do. I think you do a better job of articulating our value proposition than we do, Michael. I'm going to have to bring you along on all the podcasts and events. Thank you so much for just, I appreciate you, the way you're putting words around who we are and what we do. It really is. You really are articulating it well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I just appreciate, we need more things for men, and we need more men to be involved in their own life. We can't, if we're in a troubled marriage, we can't change the wife. We can't change. We don't have any control over that. We're all often trying to control something that we can't control. But what I can control is what I'm doing. Yeah. And this gives you a way to do that. And I like what you said earlier too. Before life starts becoming a mess, get involved before it gets to that part. Yeah. How great is it to get there and get yourself in check before you wake up and find out it's too late to get yourself in check, and it just gives you a process. And I'm really big with that. Yeah. Mark, thank you so much for joining us here today. What I'm going to do is I want to make sure that we have the links in here with it. And I also want to encourage you guys. I'm not just like to talk and sound it. I'm going to reach out to my guys, Logan and Yvonne, that I have a small group with, and say, hey, let's the three of us look at this as something that can enhance us. And I want to do the same with some of you guys. You're in a community, a church or something, and you guys don't really maybe have a men's ministry or something. This is doable. This is doable. This is not something that's it's requiring you action. That's it. Action, and to do something during the week, to read and to apply it, which we should be doing anyways. Right. So, thank you again, Mark, for that. So I want to challenge my people out there to look at this. What a great way to be intentional. Any last words before we take off, Mark?
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for having me. I've really enjoyed chatting with you and hanging out together. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the work you're doing with your podcast as well. It's making a difference, I'm sure.
Thank you so much. And to my listeners, until next time, just keep being intentional. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Intentional Guy Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and got some real value out of it. Tell others what you learned and share the podcast if you think they would benefit from it too. Please follow us on your favorite podcast platform, leave a review, and consider checking out our website, intentionalguy.org, to learn more about us and get in touch. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.